major points that come to the fore. Number one being clean energy transition and climate change. Number two, mitigating the economic and the social impacts of Putin's war in Ukraine. Number three, increasing the capacity to multilateral development banks. And number four, the global challenges. Now, these are the 4 points that we are looking at as we speak of the agenda for G20. Now, remember, only 2 months have passed since Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to the United States of America. And this time around, during bilateral talks with India, focus would be to speed up the promises made, the announcements done in Washington, D.C. by both the leaders, and less possibility of some big deliverables, as most of the things have already been discussed in what was announced in D.C. Now, this bilateral is likely to be seen as an opportunity to review the big-ticket announcements that were made back in June. So this is the update that we are getting, and we will bring Siddhant back into this conversation. Siddhant, as I was just mentioning, the 4 major points as the agenda for G20. Very firstly, if we get into the depths of these, very firstly, we have the mention of clean energy transition and climate change, and also the increasing capacity of multilateral development banks, global challenges in mitigating economic and social impacts of Putin's war in Ukraine. How are we looking at each of these agenda?
Well, look, from very first day, United States of America has been supporting India's development growth agenda for this G20. Perhaps India's agenda is sustainable, balanced, to give sustainable, developmental, balanced, growth-oriented agenda. And this particular agenda has been prepared keeping in mind the concerns and issues of the global south. And perhaps from very first day, United States have been supporting India's agenda when it comes to the concerns of global south, when it comes to supply chain, the issue of supply chain, when it comes to climate change. So on all these key issues, United States and India are largely on the same page. Perhaps in the Sherpa meetings also, the 4 Sherpa meetings that took place, United States have always backed India, and perhaps in the month of January, Prime Minister Modi came up with the proposal of inducting African Union in G20. Now, if that happens, then it will become G21. Let's see whether name gets changed or not. But if African Union would be added to the G20, then it would give more boost and more gravity to this entire grouping. And United States is perhaps one of the first few countries to support India's proposal, because United States have also understood that India's agenda is for the developing nations. Till now, we have seen that largely these multilateral groupings have been dominated by Western powers, Western countries. But since this is a right time for India, since India is the chair of the G20 presidency, and last year it was Indonesia, next year it's going to be Brazil. So all 3 countries are represent the aspiration of global south. All these countries largely have similar problems. All these countries largely have similar concerns. So the troika next year, the troika would be from these are going to be these 3 countries. So it's a right time for the global for the countries from the global south to raise their concern. And if you remember, then Prime Minister Modi perhaps also organized summit for the countries from the global south. He
Absolutely,
visited Pacific Island nations.
Right.
So this time India's agenda is for the developing world,
right.
And United States is out and out backing India's agenda. Only there are some complications when it comes to para 3 and 4, which was formulated during the Bali declaration, part of a Bali declaration. But perhaps India is also trying to build consensus, or maybe we could expect some rephrasing of those paragraphs. But that is